The main event in the entity's realm is the trials. However, what happens outside of them? What can the characters do, and where can the characters go? Hey everyone, and let's get into it. There's somewhat of a misconception when it comes to the survivors and if they ever leave the campfire. They absolutely do. It's just that leaving the campfire isn't the best idea, and usually results in death and a swift return to the campfire. The campfire is the area in which most survivors opt to stay because it's likely the only truly safe place in the realm, where they're able to live life peacefully between trials. It's also the place in which they always seem to return if they end up dying, whether that be in the trials or out in the fog. Therefore, the obvious thing to do for them is to simply remain at the campfire, where they can at least have some moments of joy and safety. The campfire itself appears to have magical and protective properties of some kind, with it being ever burning and even warding off killers who come close. In the main screen, we can even see the killers have to hold off and wait at the fire's edge. It's quite likely it emits a similar type of powerful light to that of the flashlights. The campfire is also used to burn the offerings for each side, influencing how the trial may play out, or requesting certain wishes from the entity. This further outlines it as magical and holding a great deal of importance and power. So first off, what do the survivors do around the campfire? Well, there's a few things seemingly. A big one is simply socializing. This is likely a benefit to the entity too, and simply another small source of emotion when the survivors and killers aren't actively in the trials. We can see even from our limited perspective that the characters do interact with one another, and the seeming lack of ability to talk during the trials may instead be an entity-given restriction. Outside of the trials, we know they socialize. Whilst many don't share the same language or time period, they surely still get along for the most part, banding together in this strange place that is really beyond all of their understanding. Benedict Baker was a character once part of the realm, who would comment on the new arrivals of characters, and even make reference to how they fit into the group, and made others feel. This suggests at one point that he too was at the campfire directly, and others that we may not have seen could have been too. We can assume therefore that many of the survivors are friends and probably have shared their experiences and lives with one another, even though some may not. I do believe there's a limit to this however, and a big factor that would put a restriction on relationships in the realm, and that's the memory loss. With every death, the survivors' memories are wiped. It's equally likely quite a depressing process, with characters getting their memories wiped after death, and so conversations possibly becoming difficult over time. It could simply be that the lack of talking is a result of this. It's futile perhaps to talk and build relationships when at any moment one of you may be chosen to enter a trial, and could come out the other end with a wiped memory. This could be the ultimate reason for what is largely silence around the fire, and simply nods and small checks on one another. The other thing the survivors do around the campfire is scavenge and create offerings. If you didn't know, many of the offerings we see in game are likely handcrafted by the survivors, for them later to be burnt in the campfire. Surrounding the campfire, botany knowledge makes mention of plants around it. Whilst we can't see much, we can presume it's just off slightly in the distance maybe. There's a number of different flowers and plants we know are present in the realm. We also know there's different animals, particularly birds, likely near the fire too. There are additional things to collect too, and various items that possibly require deeper exploration into the fog. In fact, the rarity of the offering could possibly indicate the difficulty of its procurement. There's certain offerings that do suggest survivors must have searched the fog, and retrieved them in different ways, with them being sourced from characters like Vigo and other fog traveling and mastering characters. Searching in the fog is something a lot of characters seem to actually do, but it's a useless endeavor, with the survivors eternally ending back at the campfire, where they will inevitably enter more trials. Much like if the survivors die within the trials and return to the campfire, this seems to be the same case for survivors who decide to enter the fog and die whilst out there. Ultimately, whatever you do, you're going to be back where the entity wants you, unless you manage to bend the realm to your will somehow, or simply survive long enough, I suppose. A bit like Vigo. Characters like the Observer experience similar situations to the survivors, where he tries to leave his tower or tries to die, but he simply is returned back to the tower. The realm is a cycle and process, and so there's a reason why most survivors likely just opt to stay put. The campfire does appear to be connected to other parts of the realm though. It's simply a very dangerous process to go from the safety of the campfire and venture out into the unknown of the fog. Within the fog, it appears the killers themselves can sometimes be present, and other times additional creatures of the fog. In a more recent instance, we know there is some sort of vampire present within the fog that attacked a number of different survivors, and potentially even bit a few. It's sort of a coin toss therefore whether it is worth exploring the fog. Will you find something interesting, some strange realm to explore, or possibly something that could aid you in the trials like a blueprint or blighted serum? Or will you find some horror that attacks you and sends you back to the campfire with a wiped memory? I think the memory wipe is really one of the big restrictions that holds many of the survivors back, because it basically means it resets any progress they've made. One of the earliest cases of survivors searching the fog was when a number of them ventured out and came across Vigo's laboratory. All of these survivors appear to have found the same laboratory that Talbot the Blight later also found. It was a mysterious shack of some kind, filled with research and vials of the blighted serum. This is why many of the characters then appear covered in the substance. It also seems like this is a recurring place the survivors are able to visit, with subsequent years also having characters who have gained these types of cosmetics. Perhaps the shack is a place that is fairly reachable from the campfire, and so each year when the blight infestation breaks out inside of the realm, a group ventures out to retrieve some of the substance and to study the books. Vittorio is one of the main survivor characters to traverse the fog, and seemingly did so too before he even came to the trials. He was a character who summoned the entity after all, and even did research into the observers. Vittorio discovers a lot of different things whilst doing so, such as his jacket and fade. In fact, pretty much all of his clothes are seemingly found within lost or abandoned realms within the entity. Even the tattoos across his skin seem to have come originally from the Observer's Tower, or potentially another Observer-type figure's tower. The realm is made up of many abandoned and discarded realms, and therefore there is likely just a lot of stuff lying around, created from memories which Vittorio then takes as his own and wears or tries out. There's a number of other mentions of characters exploring the fog in cosmetics though, and often in very strange ways. Meg, Dwight, and Claudette seemingly travelled throughout the fog in sort of a travelling circus at one point, with the cosmetics even belonging to a collection named Fog Travellers. Dwight was a snake oil merchant, and Meg a fortune teller, and Claudette a healer, things they were probably never in their prior lives. This is more than likely the carnival at Father Campbell's chapel, which is noted to have moved throughout the realm, with it temporarily camped at the chapel. Despite this, we have never seen it move, but potentially for a while Meg did travel alongside it, with Dwight and Claudette. Additional characters have related outfits too, with Jake referenced as a guitar player. Interestingly though, this collection also includes the killers, with Trapper appearing as a strongman. The artwork for this even shows the characters just hanging out around the caravan. It's an interesting look into how things might go down outside the trials, and it's possibly just a case here of the entity infiltrating memories and recreating them for whatever purpose. But there are times seemingly where the survivors and killers sort of just have to get along. This happens in different ways too, and more extreme ways also. One of Doctor's cosmetics makes reference to the sheer influence of the entity, and its ability to serve the characters just about anything, or do anything it wants inside the realm. Doctor requests a submarine full of 100 people to experiment on, and he gets it. So the survivors and killers outside of the trials suddenly traveling the fog as part of a circus is hardly that strange comparatively. And hey, we're just getting started on the strange stuff. While some collections make direct reference to the fog, such as Fog Travelers, it's debatably the case that all the cosmetics in-game are things the survivors have gained from exploring the fog. Many of them simply may be the characters wearing the outfits from prior memories, but some encounters can be clearly viewed as outside of the trials or by the campfire, and therefore likely in one of the many abandoned realms within the entity's realm. Much of it does still take place out in the woods, but lots of it also takes place in cities and other areas that seem completely alien to the realm, but are contained within it. This would explain instances too of why many characters share themed outfits, with the killers being sent to capture the survivors and return them back to the campfire, with again so many of these events not occurring in what we see of the realm. My reasoning behind this all essentially being canon is that the devs have confirmed things to be canon specifically through cosmetics and the artwork. Sure, that doesn't necessarily mean it's all canon, but I feel that's a fair connection. If not, these could very well be other universe versions of our survivors, and their alternate and different memories that are also playing out in the fog, just not in the visible fog which we see. We see from the cosmetics that the survivors do seem to get to celebrate different events, such as Oktoberfest and the holiday season, with them shown in a holiday cabin. This does sort of make sense too, because it likely builds hope and emotional connection to one another, which only strengthens the emotions when they go through the pain and suffering of the trials. In fact, this is also likely the canon reason behind the in-game events, to keep the survivors' suffering fresh, and also retaining some hope and motivation for participating in the trials. Other cool areas of note are the Greek Legends collection area, where it seems the entity consumed a whole world during ancient Greece, allowing the survivors to now investigate it. We know that Romulus, one of the founders of ancient Rome, was once a survivor in the trials, therefore this really isn't too far-fetched. Another world we see is a large city with neon bright lights. We also see a world that does actually look like an apocalypse. Many of the survivors are shown to navigate this area, with it looking fairly Mad Maxy. This is what likely many of the abandoned realms of the Entity's realm look like. We see places in forests, jungles, and more war-torn areas with crashed and destroyed plains. We even see some of the creatures of the realm out in the fog within these artworks, such as the man-eating bunnies. There's been some back and forth over the years on if the killers act in the same way as the survivors do between the trials, and it would seem so. Otherwise, certain confirmed instances of killer relationships just wouldn't make much sense. Interaction becomes quite a different thing too when we come to the killer side, with them likely not being as open or sociable as the survivors are with each other. It's nice to theorize like I have in the past about the possible relationships they may have, but the truth is they probably do not interact for the most part. Most of the killers are unstable, cruel, and incredibly broken people who likely aren't going to enter into a friendly chat with someone else. There was a dev stream a while ago where they did suggest, however, that some of the killers would be rivals, but the only other descriptor they used is neutral. This in fairness seems pretty true, aside a rather unique case. Wraith and Nurse are confirmed to have something going on between them, according to the devs, and with the appearance of them both in a Valentine's cosmetic, which shows Wraith quite literally stealing Nurse's heart, it would seem it's romantic. Additional canon relationships are those of characters like twins being siblings, then also characters like Legion who would remain friends in the realm more than likely, with Frank and Julie being romantically involved. Knight and his guards are also buddies, so probably are able to hang about in their realm too. We see through a cosmetic collection the two Yamaokas meeting and seemingly bonding over their anger with this specific collection. It's actually more heartbreaking than anything, with them sort of representing the beginning and end of their family's downfall, yet embracing it. Characters who don't have their own realm probably go to the next appropriate one. Someone like Bubba, for example, would more than likely feel comfortable hanging around Coldwind Farm, especially as it has multiple areas or maps. A bit like the survivors, we can maybe infer some friendships too from the collection artwork, with them possibly being sent out in groups in order to catch survivors out in the fog. The Observer is another key character who we see explore deeper into the fog and the different realms within the fog. Within his tower, he uses the Oris to open doorways into different abandoned realms within the Entity's realm, some of which he even directly investigates. Some of the more talked about ones you might have seen before are the Castle, which had this mysterious vampire character inside. This could even be the same one who attacked Vittorio and is named the Master. He additionally finds a world overrun by spiders named Terra Arachna, with people still trying to survive. These spiders end up infiltrating his tower, along with some of these strange squid-like creatures. He also finds various abandoned worlds, and many different strange worlds too, such as a universe in which Dwight is an emperor. He finds notes about someone named the Mad Designer, who seems responsible for designing many of the things in the realm, such as the anniversary masks and the event itself. You can see the Mad Designer's creations in the store too, with all of the cosmetics with a strange name attribution such as Z. There are further other characters in the fog who explore areas in which we never see. Some of the survivors' relatives are looking for them, and we see some different possible areas within the realm in the House of Arkham entries. Another character in the lore is Saku, the Red Crane, who is currently traveling traveling around with Maurice after she saves him from inside of Dredge. In recent tomes, we've had visual comic-like entries that show off some different parts of the realm, which is quite cool. There are many strange things out in the fog and the wider realm. There's giant serpents, babies, and a whole lot more. The place with the most craziness though is the Void, a place where many abandoned realms lie and are filled with various lost souls. We got a brief look at the Void during the Halloween event of last year, seeing the strange haunts that live there, who are likely the drained souls of previous survivors and killers, left to remain in the Void, empty and useless to the entity. The observer witnesses many strange things in the Void, finding different realms and such. Finally, I wanted to do more of a speculative section about who I think would get along in the realm. On the killer side, I do think it's narrow. The two Yamaokas I believe are going to have a tough time coming to terms with one another. Rin may feel anger toward Kazan for being what ultimately caused the downfall of her family, and Kazan equally may feel infuriated that his family ended with more infighting and a father killing his own daughter. It's going to be a fiery reunion with a lot of anger and resentment, but who knows, maybe they even bond over this. Some things definitely point to that. Charlotte and Victor are also family, yet the relationship is going to be quite strained, I think, with Victor likely not being real and an entity creation instead. I imagine Charlotte may eventually realize this, but ultimately accept that it's better than having no one. The other characters who are sort of family are the Legion. In the realm they remain friends seemingly, and are now indulging in what many of them once dreamed of becoming. We know further that both Frank and Julie are in a romantic relationship, and Susie loved Julie at one point too. Not the most functional family, I imagine, but they are ultimately probably quite grateful they have one another in the realm. Ghostface and Legion I could see either being friends, or Ghosty taking on a mentor relationship with them, seeing their enthusiasm and studying of others, but being inexperienced and sloppy. Maybe Ghostface and Myers could have a Spider-Man point moment where they see each other's masks, and hey, maybe they even become besties because of this. I could see both Wesker and Hux either being great friends or intense rivals, as they argue over what perfection is, each having their own definitions. Maybe they get along, who knows. Sadako and Spirit may get along purely because they're both essentially the same spirit type, both being Onryos. Maybe they could bond over this somehow and get along. Skull Merchant and Trickster may get along as two very performative characters who both portray a sort of persona. I can imagine them having similar opinions and feeling above everyone else. Possibly this could be a rivalry instead too. Xenomorph and Demogorgon could get along as two largely mindless creatures running around the realm and chasing crows. Unknown and Demogorgon I think could be a fun pairing too. Unknown is looking for its dog, and Demo is the perfect candidate for the role. Dredge and Doctor could possibly bond over their shared connection of Otto, and equal desire for all things evil, however much bonding is possible for Dredge. Chucky and Nicolas Cage and Ash Williams may get along, or Chucky may subtly fanboy over them. I sort of think this is one of the only connections to be made across both sides, where otherwise I don't think survivors and killers would get along. Nicolas Cage may do this in a similar way to Sadako, being a fan of her. Who knows, maybe she'd be receptive to it. Finally, many of the killers just wouldn't really even be able to communicate in the first place, or perhaps not have a desire to. Some I could see staying alone out of lack of humanity, and others staying alone due to literally not wanting to go near the others, with some still equally having more humanity. What about the survivors? Jeff and Kate seem to appear a lot together in collections, and I could see them both being friends with a shared passion for art, and both seeming to be very compassionate people. Felix and Elodie are sort of canon friends, but this relationship may be somewhat strained after their split and the death of their parents. It'd be interesting to see their reunion. The same goes for characters like Michaela and Sable too, who of course would be reunited upon coming to the realm. Sable may be more happy than Michaela is about it. Alan will be fascinated by everyone, I think, with him seemingly writing them all into existence in his lore, or at least thinking he did. He's going to be interested in how they are as real people, I think. Ripley and Gabriel may get along, being sort of out of place and far off in the future compared to the others. They could at least relate to one another and possibly get along quite well. Those are just a few that I think and some others think might get along. Let me know your thoughts too, of course, down below. Overall, the realm is a pretty crazy place, filled with just about all kinds of things you can imagine. The realm is not small by any means, and is only made weirder by the fact that it contains the collective collective memories and thoughts of all those who live inside of it, who do you think would get along in the realm?